The Galactic Academy Xenobiology Lecture Hall buzzed with nervous energy as Professor Crix activated the containment field around a small, dark liquid sample. The amber fluid swirled innocuously in its transparent container, but every non-human student in the room understood the gravity of what they were observing. "This substance," Professor Crix announced, his forearms gesturing dramatically toward the display, "represents one of the most dangerous compounds regularly consumed by sentient beings in known space. The humans of Sol 3 call it coffee. A collective shiver ran through the assembled students. Vex, a blue-skinned Altarian, raised one of her 6 hands tentatively. "Professor, how do they survive ingesting such a toxin?" The professor's scaled head nodded gravely. "An excellent question. This compound contains caffeine, a stimulant so potent that it would send most species into immediate cardiac arrest. The concentration in this sample could kill a Zentari in seconds, cause complete nervous system failure in a Klaxon, and trigger explosive cellular breakdown in a Rigelian." Tom Blake sat in the back row, trying not to smile. The human exchange student had been attending xenobiology classes for 3 weeks now, and this was by far the most entertaining lecture yet. He watched as his classmates leaned away from the containment field as if the coffee might somehow escape and attack them. "The most disturbing aspect," Professor Crix continued, "is that humans consume this poison voluntarily. Not only do they drink it regularly, but they appear to require it for basic cognitive function. Our researchers believe they have developed a form of controlled addiction that somehow enhances their performance rather than destroying them." Nyx, a crystalline being from the Epsilon system, chimed with worry. "How much do they typically consume?" "Professor?" "Multiple doses per day," came the horrified response. "Some humans reportedly consume quantities that would be lethal to an entire Corvan family unit. They have been observed drinking it black, with no dilution whatsoever." Tom cleared his throat. Every head in the room turned toward him with a mixture of fascination and terror. "Actually, Professor, I was wondering if I could examine that sample more closely." The lecture hall fell silent. Professor Crix's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "Mr. Blake, I understand your species has an unusual relationship with this compound, but I cannot allow you to handle such a dangerous substance without proper protective equipment." "Oh, I don't need protection," Tom replied casually, standing up and walking toward the front of the room. "Mind if I have a sip?" The collective gasp was audible. Several students actually fled the room. Vex began hyperventilating, her breathing apparatus working overtime. "He cannot be serious," she whispered to her neighbor. Professor Crix backed away from the containment field. "Mr. Blake, I must insist that you maintain a safe distance. This compound is not merely dangerous, it is actively hostile to biological systems." Tom reached the front of the class and examined the sample with professional interest. "Actually, this looks like a pretty decent roast. Medium dark. I'd say Colombian, maybe. Though it's probably gone cold by now." "Cold," Professor Crix repeated. Faintly. "Yeah, coffee tastes better hot. Room temperature is acceptable, but not ideal." Tom looked around the room at the horrified faces staring back at him. "Look, I know this seems crazy to you all, but humans really do drink this stuff every day. I personally go through about 4 cups before lunch." The silence stretched for several heartbeats before Nyx managed to chime out a question. 4 cups of poison before lunch. "Well, we don't consider it poison," Tom explained patiently. "We call it breakfast." Professor Crix steadied himself against his desk. "Mr. Blake, our analysis indicates that this substance contains enough stimulants to accelerate a human heart rate to dangerous levels, cause severe dehydration, and trigger acute anxiety responses." "Sure, if you drink too much," Tom agreed. "But the same could be said about water," Technically, the dose makes the poison, right? Besides, most of us build up a tolerance pretty quickly. Tolerance, the professor repeated, as if the word were foreign. Yeah, after a while, you need more and more to get the same effect. I remember when I first started drinking coffee in college, 1 cup would keep me wired for hours. Now I can drink an espresso and take a nap 20 minutes later. The remaining. Students exchanged glances of pure terror. The human was describing a progressive poisoning process as if it were completely normal. Mr. Blake, Professor Cricks said carefully, are you suggesting that humans deliberately expose themselves to increasing doses of this toxin until their bodies adapt? Pretty much, yeah. Tom shrugged. It's really not that different from building up immunity to other things. Your body learns to process it more efficiently. But why? Vex managed to ask, still breathing heavily. Why would your species choose to consume something so dangerous? Tom considered the question seriously. Well, it tastes good, for one thing. And it helps us wake up in the morning, stay alert during long work periods, and generally function better throughout the day. Plus, there's something comforting about the ritual of making and drinking coffee. It's social, you know. Social, Professor Cricks echoed weakly. Oh, absolutely. Humans gather to drink coffee together all the time. We have entire establishments dedicated to serving it. Coffee shops, cafes, that sort of thing. It's a huge part of our culture. The professor sat down heavily in his chair. Your species has built social institutions around the consumption of poison. When you put it like that, it does sound a bit odd, Tom admitted. But really, it's not poison to us. Our livers process caffeine pretty efficiently, and most healthy. Adults can handle reasonable amounts without any problems. He paused, looking around the room at the assembled aliens. Look, I know this is hard to understand, but different species evolve different tolerances. What's deadly to you might be harmless to us, and vice versa. I bet there are things you all consume regularly that would kill me instantly. Actually, Professor Cricks said slowly, the Altarians consume trace amounts of mercury in their daily nutrition supplements. See, and I bet Nyx there processes minerals that would tear up my digestive system. The crystalline being chimed an affirmative note. The point is, Tom continued, we're all adapted to our own environments and dietary needs. Humans evolved on a planet with naturally occurring caffeine in various plants. We learned to use it to our advantage. Professor Cricks looked at the coffee sample with new interest. So this substance actually provides benefits to your species? Definitely. Better focus, increased alertness, improved physical performance. There are even studies suggesting it might have some health benefits in moderate doses. Fascinating, the professor murmured. And you mentioned that it tastes good to humans. Tom grinned. Would you like me to demonstrate? Before anyone could. Object. Tom reached over and deactivated the containment field. The collective intake of breath was so sharp it created a small wind current in the room. Without hesitation, he picked up the sample container and took a healthy sip of the coffee. Not bad, he said, smacking his lips thoughtfully. Little bitter, needs sugar, but definitely drinkable. 3 more students fainted. Professor Cricks stared at Tom with something approaching awe. Remarkable. You show no signs of distress whatsoever. Well, like I said, it's gone cold. Tom took another sip. But yeah, this is pretty normal for us. Thanks for letting me try it. As Tom returned to his seat, finishing the coffee along the way, Professor Cricks made a note in his lecture materials. Perhaps it was time to revise the section on human dietary habits. Clearly, there was much more to learn about these fascinating and apparently indestructible creatures from Sol 3.